Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and to Old Ways number 76.
76, the Bicentennial edition.
Yeah, and
we're old enough we remember the Bicentennial.
very well. Nick, I'm excited for next year. The 250th.
Yep, next year.
Next July the 4th will be the 200th anniversary of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson dying.
Yeah.
They died on the same day, on the 50th anniversary.
Which is kind of, like I said, we remember the 200th, and now we're about to celebrate the 250th.
Yeah.
So, time flies.
Yes, it does. Now we're the old folks, which is fun.
I can clearly remember whenever I was I was 36, and me and my group were putting on the Southeastern Rendezvous, and me and Jeff were standing there, and this father came up with his two, like 18 or 19-year-old daughters, and pointed us out from like 8 feet away and said hey to us and said, now, if you feel any discomfort here, if you get nervous or whatever, find these guys that are wearing the kilts and the red shirts. They're the security here. They'll get you back. If there's any problem, do that. And so they turned around, they walked off. It's the first time that the girls had ever rendezvoused with their daddy.
Right.
And I remember sitting there, and I turned and looked at Jeff, and I said, when did it stop? We started being the pillars of the community and stopped being the hide your daughters. When did that happen? And times were changing. That was a thing the other day. Somebody was pointing out a video that I had done on my channel 15 years ago. And it suddenly dawned on me, I was in my 40s when I made that video. I'm in my 60s now.
Yeah.
But I was in my 40s when I made that video. So.
And the beards were a lot darker too.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff that was a lot different, Oh, but looking back, you just don't realize it. It dawns on you. Heck, I was like 45 whenever I did that video, or 48, And I thought I was old back then.
Yeah. Going back to the Bicentennial.
Yeah.
In the school system that we came up in for the Bicentennial, they built a one-room schoolhouse. And they would bring in kids from all over town to that one-room schoolhouse, which was between my elementary school and the old high school. And it was just like you had pulled it out of 1883 and set it right down there on the side of the street.
Yeah, they had an actual set of blueprints from what was a prescribed schoolhouse. And they followed it down to the letter. Painting it red because they used red barn paint back in the day because preventing insects. It had a pot-bellied stove in it and an old chalkboard, and you had, remember the little chalk, the easel, slate tablets with chalk.
Tablets, yes. I do.
We got to experience that.
It had blueback spellers, and it also had McGuffey readers. Those were really interesting, and we conducted class just like they had done 140 years before. My grandfather
I was amazed how advanced it was.
Oh yeah! By the time my grandmother graduated high school, and let's see, she graduated early. She graduated at 16. But that was 1921-ish. She had a year of algebra, 2 years of calculus, a year of trigonometry, 3 years of Latin, on top of her history and her English. Kids today would have no clue. I didn't have calculus till I was in college.
Well, I can remember we learned an abacus.
Mm-hmm.
They let us play with an abacus for like a couple of days, maybe a week.
Yeah, in third grade.
Like third grade. And then you shifted over to doing longhand mathematics.
Yes.
You know, when we were in school, you were supposed to take a foreign language. It was either French or Spanish, is what they taught at the high school.
Yeah.
And my sister, they had taught Latin. You know, she's
That,
12 years. There's 12 years between us. And so she graduated right at 70, and here I was 10 years later in 80, and they'd shifted where they didn't talk Latin anymore. Now it was Spanish or French.
Yeah.
You know.
That was about the time I had changed schools, and the only foreign language my school offered was French.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my obligatory year of French. And that was about my extent of it.
I did not. Well, they tried to push where everybody was supposed to take a foreign language, and so that you had that. Remember the aptitude test?
Yes.
To find out. Well, after they had my aptitude test for Spanish and aptitude test for French, they said French would be a better choice, and so they stuck me in the French class. And in less than a month, the teacher said, "You don't need to take French." I mean, I could butcher it so bad, it was just horrible. And I remember the lady that was teaching it, she said, "I respect your commitment, I respect your attempt, but you sound like a mule braying down a sewer pipe. It just does not." If you speak French to any French-speaking individual, they're going to be horribly offended at the way you speak. You know, which was just an honest statement, and so they gave me credit and let me just skip it because I didn't need it. Yeah.
You mentioned an abacus.
Yeah.
What was that math a few years ago that was absolutely rewriting 5,000 years of math? What did they call it?
The new math.
The new math, yeah. But there was a name for it.
I forget the after name, but they finally admitted it's actually Chinese.
It's Chinese math on how to work an abacus.
It's how to work an abacus. So your kids today are taught in school how to do an abacus without the abacus, but when they're adding it up, it's abacus. And it was the education admitted that it was exactly Chinese mathematics.
Yeah.
And they were changing the American system to match the Chinese system because it was making it hard for the Chinese to understand our technology.
Boo-hoo.
So they couldn't steal it as easy, I guess.
Boo-hoo.
Boo-hoo.
I saw.
We learned to do long division.
Yes, we did.
And cursive writing.
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely tickles me. We joke about it, but for the longest time, if I wanted to write something I didn't want my kids to know what it was, I wrote it in cursive.
Write it in cursive.
They have no clue.
Yeah.
They've started reteaching cursive and old-style math.
Yay.
We had orientation last night for my grandchildren up at the elementary school, and they're doing old-fashioned math, and they're doing old-fashioned everything else.
Good.
It's wonderful.
Well, I understand one of the reasons they wanted to get away from the cursive was no computer can read it.
Who cares?
Well, that was just it. You know, I saw a thing several years ago, and I think I mentioned it earlier in one of the earlier old ways, that the Smithsonian talked about that the only way they can document anything for posterity has to be a hard copy, because no electronic digital medium can be used. Because take, for example, whenever we went in the 1970s, we sent a probe to Venus.
Right.
And it got all this data and information. And when you go to the Smithsonian, at least it did 35 years ago when we got married, you got to see the big old huge reel-to-reel of the tape where they had recorded it. The problem with it is that technology is so obsolete that we can't read that today. And they never finished analyzing all that data before the technology had moved on and nobody had a reader that could read this data. And so you can't store in any kind of electronic means. Technology will go past it, and then it might as well be hieroglyphs. They can't read it and understand it, so that everything has to be a hard copy. Well, cursive writing, no computer can scan it other than taking a picture of it, and you can't take, what they do today is like you take the Congress getting up there and making a speech. They have a program that will take the spoken word and put it into text so they can record that speech and record it in the archives. So we'll know 100 years from now what they said. But if you write something out in cursive, the computer, all they can do is take a picture of it. They can't transcribe it, and they can't search for it because they can't read the words. And so they took away us writing in cursive and want everybody to print so that computers could then store the information. I didn't say it made sense. That's why they did it.
Folks do a lot of things that don't make sense, don't they?
My great aunt could speak fluent Latin because in school she had learned Latin, and she had been Catholic, and Catholics still did masses in Latin. You know, when she got mad, she'd curse at you in Latin. Nobody knew what she was saying, which I can't say much because on the other side of the family, the Indian side of the family, I've heard tales about the Indian part of my family. When they got mad, they'd cuss at you in Cherokee. So,
you remember that scene in Tombstone where Doc Holliday and, oh God, what's his name?
Ringo, White Earp?
What? It was Ringo.
Ringo, yeah.
Johnny Ringo.
Yeah.
Where they're in the saloon,
yeah,
and they start insulting each other in Latin.
In Latin.
That's funny.
There has been so many reviews of that movie trying to translate what they were saying into it and what they were trying to insult each other back and forth. I've seen probably a dozen in-depth discussions of Latin masters trying to figure out what, and it comes down to was the guy who was writing those lines knew what he was doing is the question. They did I saw a thing one time, it was came out of Asia. It might have been Korean, it might have been Chinese for all I know. But it was a war movie, and in it the Americans are the bad guys. Well, they're not played by Americans in the movie, but Asian people trying to look like they was Americans. And what they're saying in English does not match the text. You know, I remember distinctly what it said was, you know, fire all weapons, what it said in the text, and what he said was load the Coke machine. So apparently they were just randomly grabbing English and throwing it in there. And these actors didn't speak English, and so they just were phonically pronouncing something. So.
Well, you know, that's how Arnold Schwarzenegger did when he first came to the States.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't speak English to amount to anything, and all of his lines were phonetic.
Yeah. Well, have you ever seen the old Laurel and Hardy, where they did movies for overseas, like Spain or whatever, and they took a big old chalkboard and they'd phonically write it, and so they'd do the movie in English, and then they would redo it with them saying the lines in Spanish or French or whatever,
and then dub it.
And then you'd see them go like, da-da-da. They'd look and have to see what they got to say, you know, and they'd dub it that way.
I never noticed that.
But that was Laurel and Hardy did that. I thought that was hilarious. Later they came up with dubbing where they just put a different soundtrack on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We were talking about the Bicentennial at the beginning.
Yeah.
That was a fun couple of years.
It was a hot couple of years for me.
It was, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun because everybody was patriotic. Everybody was excited about it. You know, this is our country and we're 200 years old. And, you know, do you remember the play that the city of Enterprise put on?
Yeah.
Well, I was in that play.
Oh, 1776.
No, it wasn't the place. It was one that the city did at the Bates Memorial Stadium.
Okay.
I played General John Coffey.
Oh, cool.
Of course, at the ripe old age of 11, I screwed it up royally.
Well, of course.
Hey, and it was fun. John Coffey is the guy that this county's named after.
My passion for living history got going about 76.
Well, all the movies in the theaters had, Western themes, Rev War themes, patriotic, historical themes. That's about the time that Jeremiah Johnson came out.
Yeah, I think Jeremiah Johnson was a little earlier.
It was. Yeah. It was 2 or 3 years before.
But, it made a difference.
It did.
You had big historic parks that had been like Revolutionary War, like Yorktown and all that. And they were putting on big reenactments.
Yeah.
Civil War groups, they had done their bit back in the 60s because it was the 100-year anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, Battle of Shiloh, all like that. And so those big parks were putting on their events, and the Bicentennial was the Rev War time period, those type places. And so I knew families that were planning on taking their vacations to go see the Battle of Concord or go see, whatever. And it was big and interesting at the time period. And,
it was.
And it seemed like about every night on like the NBC News, they pointed out some historical thing that happened on that day for the entire year of 76. What happened in 1776. I can still see the guy sitting there, one of the anchors, and he'd talk about on this day in 1776, and he'd talk about what was going on 200 years ago today.
Do you remember, we had mini-series every month, every week. There was a new mini-series coming out. I believe it was the author John Jakes that wrote a series of books. Started off with one called The Bastard. You remember that? About the illegitimate French kid that came over and fought in the Revolution and became some...
I think I do, yeah.
Yeah. But then there was every generation had its own book in the series, and it went out probably to World War I or World War II. But I mean, they were making miniseries out of them.
Somewhere along in there was Centennial.
Yeah, that was later. That was riding out the tide. It was in about 79.
Yeah, somewhere about. I remember Centennial. And
I loved Centennial.
I really enjoyed that miniseries. And then you had, that was people today, young people today, you've got the internet and you can go right now find any of these things we're talking about. Back in them days, you had the television. That was about it. Mm-hmm. And movies would come out, and then you would see them at the theater, and they were gone. And then you might get to see some movie that was real famous or whatever, might pop up on Saturday night on CBS or NBC, something like that, the movie of the week.
Yeah.
And that'd be the only other opportunity you got to see it.
Or on a Saturday night.
Yeah, it was in the 80s when we got VHS tapes where you could actually go rent and see a movie that you had actually seen or a TV show. But these big series that would come out would be like Shogun.
Yes.
Came out.
Have you ever read that book?
Yes.
I love the book, but geez, it's...
Oh, he went into detail now.
The guy that wrote Centennial, what was his name?
Michener.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michener was the same way. Centennial, I've read Centennial too, and it's about the same thickness.
If you want to, any topic that Michener wrote, if what you're interested in is a topic he wrote about a book, read the book. Because, like when he did Centennial, he started with the formation of the planet. Mm-hmm. And you're like into chapter 5 before we got to the dinosaurs. He's talking about Colorado.
He's not exaggerating.
I'm not. And you understood the geology you understood what had formed and made these mountains.
And the beaver that dug the cave
And
10,000 years ago.
yeah, I mean, every bit of it. He tied it all together that you weren't seeing just the slice. You understood Colorado,
Yes.
you know, where at the end of it, it's an election. And you're seeing this one environmental type guy that's wanting to preserve the land. And on the other side of it, you've got an industrialist that's wanting to exploit the land. And you have seen both of them two lines coming together by that point.
And that cave that was dug by the beaver plays a pivotal part in the storyline in the late 1800s. And the two men that are running against each other in the election are the heads of the families that have been butting heads for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
It's a very, very well done book.
It is. And Herman Wouk with War and Remembrance and The Winds of War.
Yeah.
Highly recommend those.
But those were, you know, we come from a generation that read. You know, if you didn't like what was on TV and there wasn't something on the radio, you got a book. You know, and you know, me personally, I believe that's one of the detriment of the younger generation today. They don't have any imagination because they don't... Scrolling is not the same as reading a book.
No. And AT40 with Casey Kasem did not come on every night. It was on Sundays here.
Yeah, and so you got to hear it once a week.
Yeah.
And so...
I miss Casey.
Casey
Kasem.
Casey Kasem, that was it. Which we remember, you know, Wolfman Jack and the Midnight Special on NBC and things like that. Things changed over time. Technology changed, and we got more information.
You know, Casey Kasem was also a voice actor.
Yeah.
He did Shaggy on the originals. He did Shaggy on Scooby-Doo.
I didn't know that.
For years.
Yeah.
But anyway, books segues into one of the things that I wanted to talk about during this old ways. I bought, you know, I'm big into books. Blackie's big into books. And it's been a while since we've done a book on old ways. I think it goes back to like the 5th or 6th one, but was the last one. This is the 76th one. Anyway, I've got 2 books here by Horace Kephart that I found and wanted to share with you. The first one is Our Southern Highlanders, and it's really neat because I've still got a lot of family back up. Most of this story that Kephart tells occurs in western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, and northern Georgia. He mentions places like Highlands and Rockfish and I don't know, 2 or 3 other places, and the rivers. When I would go up during the summers to visit my family that's up there, these are all the places that we would go to. And you know, I grew up in these areas, and it's kind of special to me. But in good Blackie fashion, come up close, that's the IBN number for those of you who might want to investigate the book. I got these at our local Barnes & Noble, so they are available. The second book is a 2-volume compilation, Camping and Woodscraft. I have not started this one yet, but I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good read and will come in handy here on the channel.
And he did a cookbook.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, now come to think of it, there's recipes. I don't remember. I've just thumbed through this one. There are recipes. I believe it's in the southern, maybe in the Southern Highlands, where he actually has recipes in the text. There's the IBN number for Camping and Woodscraft. And remember, this is a 2-volume compilation for y'all to enjoy.
Kephart was one of the biggest voices in the creation of the Appalachian Trail and the Smoky Mountain Park and all of that. When Murr out west got Theodore Roosevelt to come out and got that part of California turned into a national park. Yellowstone turned into a national park.
Yeah. Well, now, Roosevelt ranched up there in the area around Yellowstone and
yeah,
that area of the world.
At that time in history, the industrial wanted to just clear cut everything. They only saw the forest as money potential sitting there. And so that's like the state park that we hold my gathering in every year, which is coming up, shameless plug, October 15th through the 19th at Geneva State Forest Lake down here in South Alabama.
Mark it down.
The lumber company had come in and clear cut all that land and then didn't want to pay the taxes on it, so just gave it to the state in lieu of taxes. And so they came in and turned it into state forest. Literally across the road is Conecuh National Forest, so they kind of touch, but it's just one is run by the state and the other one's run by the federal. But you see a lot of that, of these big industrials. They'd come in and just strip mine, and whenever all the gold was gone, all the silver was gone, they'd leave the holes and they'd go somewhere else. And Roosevelt, Kephart, and people like that said, we're losing something here. We need to keep our connection to the outdoors, that everybody needs the right to be able to come out and enjoy nature in some point. And so every state must have forests. Every state must have parks. Every state must have recreational areas for outdoor activity. Let's not dam up all the rivers, pollute everything. Let's save and preserve the ability to hunt, the ability to have wildlife, etc. Even though at that time they didn't understand really the mechanics of how so many of these ecosystems are interconnected. They understand from the Native Americans and everything else that they were in some way connected and wanted to be preserved. Here in our state of Alabama, we had just about got rid of all the deer.
Yeah.
And then after World War II, they came back and repopulated the deer by bringing them down from other states to get us which today we've got one of the biggest deer herds in the country.
I think it is the largest deer herd. But yeah, like you say, when our grandparents were kids, when our grandfathers, they didn't hunt because there wasn't anything to hunt. It had all been killed off.
Small game, that was about it.
Yeah, rabbits and squirrels.
Yeah, that was it. My granddaddy talks about when his granddaddy had seen a track of a deer, and they'd gotten the whole family and ran that deer down and killed it, not because of, ooh, we got a deer for meat. It was because it was eating their corn. And they were very much subsistence. You know, that one animal could eat you out of a month's worth of corn whenever you got to have that corn to get you through the winter.
Yes.
People had corn cribs and stuff back then, and they were not growing stuff strictly as a for sale crop. Many people grew stuff for their food source to be food independent. You know, you then sold and traded surplus to get the things you couldn't get, like salt, sugar,
right,
spices, things like that.
You mentioned salt. There's stories in my mother's family where her grandfather and his brothers and uncles and sons and such would load up 8 or 9 wagons from the community that they lived in southwestern Pike County, and they would go down to Phillips Inlet, which is just west of present-day Panama City, and they would take the water out of the inlet and boil it and make salt. And that's what they would do during the winter, because you couldn't do crops. You didn't row crop during the winter. You did that during the spring, the summer, and the fall. Mm-hmm. Put all that up, and then they would go down for a month down to Phillips Inlet and would make salt. And they would come back, and we're not talking about your buckboard. We're talking about a freight wagon, okay?
The 18-wheeler of the day.
The 18-wheeler of the day. The kind that it took a team of 4 up to pull.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're talking 7 or 8 tons of salt in each wagon, and they had like 10 wagons. All the families had their own salt boiling equipment, and they were right there next to each other. There was no competition. Everybody helped everybody else out. They had crews that went out and cut wood. They had crews that stirred the pot, gathered the water, and everybody had their job. And people who would go in and would cook for everybody while the other folks were doing whatever they were doing. But long story short, they would be down there for a month and a half and come home with tons of salt. And then that salt would have to last them for a calendar year.
Mm-hmm. When they're using salt preserving of meat.
Yes.
Salt in cooking, salt hides, salt whatever.
It was a salt-heavy day,
mm-hmm.
Salt-heavy time. And like he was saying, you had salt for preserving meat because you killed hogs about this time too. When you came home, you had a hog killing.
Salt pork.
Yeah, you salted your pork. You may or may not kill a beef. Salt it. Salt the hides. And most times they would just nail them up on the side of the barn.
Let them harden.
Salt them and let them harden. And then, you had your dietary requirements. They didn't know what iodine was, I'm sure, during that time. But because it was salt that came out of the bay, which was a
seafood,
part of the Gulf, and it had iodine in it, and it kept you healthy.
There's a member of my mama's family that was in Houston County, and they would plant like 5 acres of pepper. And then, like you're talking about doing salt.
Yeah.
And they would grind up pepper, and that's what they sold as surplus was pepper. Black pepper. Yeah, how many of y'all think about that, planting a garden, planting spices? We just take that for granted because you go to the store to get salt.
Right.
But if all of that collapsed, where'd you get salt at? Like he's saying, we can go to the Gulf still and boil water, but not everybody has that option. And
no.
Black pepper, spices was a very cherished commodity because food became rather mundane.
Yeah, they were hard to come by too for a long, long time. Like nutmeg.
Yeah.
Nutmeg was an extremely expensive spice. And Rhode Island, I believe it's Rhode Island, is the nutmeg state.
Yeah.
Either Rhode Island or Connecticut, I can't remember which one. Their nickname is the nutmeg state. But you would buy nutmegs from traders. They would have salt and poke was what, 2 pounds?
Yeah, I think 2 pounds of poke.
Yeah. You'd have
poke and a peck and a pinch, a poke and a peck. Yeah.
Yeah. But poke was like 2 pounds of salt, came in a cloth bag, and that's what housewives did their food out of. But yeah, you can grow all kinds of things in your garden. My gardening did not go well this year, and I'm sad to report that I accidentally killed my sourdough starter. I'll start it back up, and we'll start doing some of that, like I promised you. But yeah, you can grow lots of stuff in your garden, and trading, bartering is still as viable today as it was back then.
Well, like the family member, that if you've got a good patch of dirt for whatever, And I know several of the church groups around here have barter systems set up.
Yeah.
Where people that's got cows are trading beef for hog or for chicken or for whatever. And that's not just meats. You can trade for crops and etc. And schoolmate of mine, he raises peanuts. And he'll trade so much peanuts for so much corn. A friend of his grows corn every year. And so he'll trade him peanuts for corn. And you just work it out. You talk to people, and what can you grow? Well, what would be valuable? You know, and I don't mean necessarily monetarily, but like my mama's family member figured out, you know, everybody's growing all this stuff, and nobody's growing pepper.
Yeah.
And so they grew black pepper, and then dried it, ground it, and made black pepper, and they also grew hot peppers and pepper sauce peppers. That's all he did, and he found he could make more money in the bartering type thing doing the spices than he could trying to compete against everybody else who's growing butter beans and peanuts or peas or purple hulls or corn. And he was growing spices.
Yeah, I like the revival of the farmers markets.
Yes. We've got a good one in downtown Enterprise now that's a thriving thing.
What is it, every Thursday?
Every Thursday and every Sunday.
Is it?
Yeah.
I knew it was Thursday. I couldn't remember Sunday.
Thursday mornings they get up there and there's a beef company that sets up there and they sell beef. Yeah. You've got all kind of vegetables and everything, and it's a year-round thing.
There's arts and crafts. There's baked goods. There's
canning.
Yeah, any number of things around. You can go to the different arts and crafts shows that we have in this area. You can go. You can get homemade honey, barbecue sauces, arts and crafts, just any manner of things.
We've got a main store on Main Street down there that sells a great deal of canned stuff.
Really?
Yeah, that Bo Weevil Nut Company down there.
Okay. I didn't realize that's what they did.
Oh, dude, they got pickled squash, pickled garlic, all kinds of pickles, all kinds of relishes, all kinds of chow-chows, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I introduced Trinity and them to, Trinity is a garlic-aholic.
Oh, really?
Oh, there is no such thing as too much garlic. And so I brought her an entire jar of pickled garlic, and oh my God, you thought it was candy. And
we love you, Trinity.
Oh, yeah. And then I brought pickled squash up there to North Carolina. And I cooked steaks. And on the side, we had just a little bit of that pickled squash as a side.
Yeah.
And then I coated the steak with red pepper jelly. And they didn't know you could put red pepper jelly on steak. Oh, that is good, you know.
We used to eat it with black-eyed peas.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Lima beans and chocho. I mean, gotta have it.
Going back just a couple of things, the reason that people pickled was not only preservation, but it also provided, the what would you call it, good bacteria?
Yeah.
Yeah. The good bacteria that keeps you healthy, keeps your gut healthy.
That's the reason you keep hearing all this stuff popping up today, talking about drinking apple cider vinegar and stuff like that. Same thing. We just ate pickled foods back in them days that were pickled in vinegar.
Yeah.
And so we got it that way. And today they're telling you to drink, apple cider vinegar.
And olive oil.
And olive oil, yeah.
But yeah, there were health reasons that they may or may not have recognized. But there are things that I think we need to kind of get back toward. And putting up stuff. It takes, we've talked about this, it takes about 950 pounds of food per person for 1 year to maintain.
Go ahead and call it 1,000 pounds and be done with it.
Let's call it 1,000 for easy math. That's an awful lot of food.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that somebody scoffed when he said they planted 5 pounds of black pepper.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 acres, I'm sorry.
5 acres of black pepper.
Okay, that's not really that outlandish when you think about it, because that will, you know, that's part of that 1,000 pounds of food that you need per year. And
look at our vets who, when the first Desert War kicked off, and for the first time in a very long time, you had active duty service that was having to eat MREs more than one meal a week. MREs were always meant to be when we can't get you hot food, you have some food with you, and so you can get us a day or two. Well, some of them guys were eating nothing but MREs for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and the guys got to where they refused to eat it, and the requests just started boiling in of hot sauce, something to change the taste.
Yeah.
You know, and that's true of anything. You know, we remember people that were poor and had a corn crib. And so they're taking corn, boiling corn, grinding corn, you know, having it ground in the meal to make cornbreads and etc. And it was the spices, because you had a limited variety of food. And if you wanted it to taste different, you had to change the spicing radically.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we've talked about how our grandmothers could take a box of Bisquick and make any kind of bread you wanted.
Oh.
From cakes, cookies,
cupcakes, pizza,
you know, sandwich bread.
You know,
anything.
Rolls, muffins.
And it was just a tweak here and a tweak there and a tweak the other for basic recipes.
That's the biggest thing. The true skill in cooking was knowing how to change it to be appetizing, because food becomes mundane real quick when there's no change to it. It's the same thing every time.
Yes, it is.
You got to break it up. And I see that problem with many of these people that are putting up stuff, but they're not putting up a big enough variety or the ability to make a variety out of it.
You know what, Alan, in connection with the, what would it be, the Semiquincenntenial, the 250th anniversary.
Very dangerous word on a Scrabble board.
Yes, it is. But I would like to see a resurgence of these things. People planting gardens, people becoming self-sufficient, or as self-sufficient as their circumstances will allow. We've encouraged y'all since day one to grow food, grow small gardens in 5-gallon buckets on your back porch. You know, there's not a whole lot of room on the high rise, and even less dirt.
My yard is all shade, and I have spent 35 years getting it there. It keeps my power bill to under $150 a month, even in summer. And so I wanted shade, and I've got shade. But I don't have a great big area to grow something like tomatoes. And I've got one little patch about 20 feet where I keep enough sunlight to grow. And so I don't have a place where I could put a row crop out or something. And whereas if I had 5-gallon buckets where I could run a streak, you know, I know I had talked to a friend of mine at one time about going over to his place, and along his back fence, me just put me a bucket row there using his sunshine, and me share some of the crop with him and growing various different things there. You know, that might happen down the line. But at the same time, you know, pepper. Peppers, spices, hot peppers.
Yeah,
something.
You would be surprised how lucrative growing something like hot peppers and making pepper sauce can be. People at farmers markets and craft shows they'll grab it as much as you can put out there on the table. They'll grab it up.
If I suddenly go to dancing and hollering, I am not suddenly infected by the Holy Spirit. It's because I got cow killer ants.
Wow. For those of you that don't know, the cow killer is a legitimate bug. It's a flightless wasp
It looks like an ant, but it's about like that.
Yeah, it's about an inch long.
And it bites.
Bright red and black.
And these are black ones. That's like the third one I've knocked off my leg. So.
You cannot miss them.
So when they clamp down, you know it.
Well,
you gonna call it quits now?
I think we're gonna call this one, pull up the brake on this one. We sure do appreciate you joining us here on Old Ways number 76. And in the spirit of 76, go back and check your history. Go back and look into your history, your family's history. And let's make next year a celebration for everybody in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that.
Sounds good to me.
And with that, guys, we are glad you joined us. Want you to go down there and hit that like button. Go over and hit that bell icon and subscribe to Bears Old Ways. And with that, we'll see you down the road.